Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I want to start with a challenge. For the duration of this video, or for however long you decide to watch, what I would ask you to do is, if you feel the need to look at your phone if you're on a computer, or to tab away if you're on your phone watching this, to just pause for a second and pay attention to what that feels like and what's driving you to look away and search for something else. And this isn't about retention rate. This isn't about saying don't be on your phone while you're watching this video, okay? If you take that second to pause and feel what that feels like, and you decide you still want to check your phone, check your notification or whatever, go for it. I have no problem with that. The reason I am asking you to engage in this challenge with me today is just to develop some awareness around the idea of boredom and what that really feels like and what that drives us to want to do. So if you need to, take a second, pause the video, take one last look at your phone and your notifications before we get into this video. Let's dive in. So this emotion that we're talking about today, boredom, is actually probably one of the toughest emotions that I work with my clients, because boredom has just become this emotion that people cannot stand. And I don't know whether it's related to smartphone stuff or whether it's just because there's so much information that we're taking in on the daily through different medias, advertising, and just the pace at which we live our lives. But boredom is something that people are very uncomfortable with now. And I will do my best to aim this video. It's not just about kids. It's not just about ADHD. This is about a cultural phenomenon where the average person is very uncomfortable sitting by themselves with their own thoughts and not having anything to distract from those thoughts. So let's talk about why boredom is important. Okay, so a couple of reasons that boredom is important for us is because it gives us time with our thoughts to be able to sort through things, and creativity is actually a byproduct of intentional boredom. Thinking about things like shower thoughts, especially for most of us without our devices, and we just let our minds kind of wander and roam, those are when you have new creative ways of thinking about things. Now, a lot of times they turn into funny things like what you see in shower thoughts. That creativity, being able to take an existing idea and flip it to have a different perspective on it, have a different way of looking at things. That is creativity at work, and that's only possible when we allow ourselves to be bored. Problem solving is an outshoot of that creativity that comes through boredom. A lot of times stepping away from a problem allows our minds to turn that over a little bit, come up with another way that we can approach that problem and come up with an actually creative and helpful solution to that. This is anecdotal, but for myself, I was an English major. A lot of my best paper ideas, and even some of the ideas that led to the creation of this channel and the things that led up to that, are ideas that I came up with as I allowed my mind to wander when I was about to go to sleep. And that's an outgrowth of boredom. When we're getting ready to sleep, we allow ourselves to be in isolation with our thoughts, letting our minds wander as we get into that altered state of consciousness that is sleep. The only difficult part is making sure I remember those ideas when I wake up the next day. So if boredom is so important to us, what does this deprive us of when we don't allow ourselves to be bored? So for one thing, there's a profound discomfort for a lot of my clients whenever there's a lull in the conversation. There's this sense of being very uncomfortable with your own thoughts and with yourself as a person. Some people feel awkward, some people feel nervous, some people feel anxious. That's not necessarily stemming from any kind of innate anxiety or low self-esteem or self-image, but sometimes it's just being out of practice with being comfortable with yourself, with your body, with your mind. And what that does, like we talked about in the anxiety and avoidance cycle before, is if we start feeling very uncomfortable with ourselves, then we start carrying that sense of discomfort into relationships with others. Well, if I don't like being with myself, then why should anyone else like being with me? So a fear of boredom can actually lead to a lot of that difficulty in how we view ourselves and how we view relationships with other people. So okay, how can we foster an appreciation for boredom then? Because like I said, our society moves fast. A lot of times we don't even feel like we have the time to be bored. So how do we do that for ourselves? Anything that I talk about on here is not going to be a hack. It's not going to be a quick fix necessarily, but progressive steps that can move us towards a better point in the future, that we cultivate practices and habits that are better for us long term. So one of the ways we can cultivate an appreciation for boredom is through mindful practice. And I know I preach mindfulness in a lot of my videos. And so the reason this is actually really important is that we've connected the stigma of uncomfortable and wrong with the feeling of boredom. And what I want to do is dial that back as you allow yourself to feel bored. This might be just unplugging for 3 to 5 minutes, and you'll feel how long those minutes actually feel when you don't have constant information flow and bombardment from different notifications or messages or social media. Just sitting with yourself and your thoughts for 3 to 5 minutes, as much as you can control it, no outside influence during that time, and really be curious about, what does being bored feel like? I know I feel bored right now. What does that actually feel like? How does that feeling interact with my body to make it feel so uncomfortable? Where do I feel that discomfort? What kinds of thoughts are going through my mind? What am I telling myself as I allow myself to be bored and be by myself with my own thoughts? So mindfulness is one piece of how we can foster a practice of allowing ourselves to be bored and being okay with that, being okay with ourselves, and allowing that creativity to flourish as a result. One way that we can cope with boredom is through play. And so what's really interesting is that we might say, well, I'm kind of playing, I'm being entertained while I'm on my phone, you know, I'm watching reels or videos on YouTube and all of that good stuff, and that's entertaining me for the time that I'm on there, so I'm not bored. But what I would argue is that there's a difference between being entertained and playing. Playing is more active, it engages your mind in creative outlets, in that creative problem solving that boredom is meant to foster. You think about playing a sport and it's never the same way twice. You have to come up with different ways to move your body, interact with teammates. Kids are the best at this. Playing with kids, there is never a dull moment for them. Anything new, anything that exists in the room can be incorporated into the game. Imagination runs wild when kids play, and that's what boredom is meant to foster. Boredom is meant to be an outlet for all of those wild ideas to come through and for us to allow that to happen. And by contrast, a lot of times when we are on our phones scrolling and ostensibly being entertained for that time that we feel bored, what happens is that we often end up more irritable, more fatigued, more tired, more distracted at the end of all of that, because we have not actually allowed ourselves to be bored, we've just put it off. So some of that is why boredom is important and how we can move forward and change our relationship with boredom as things progress. Comment below what your experience is like with boredom, what that's like for you, and how you cope with that feeling of boredom. It doesn't have to be a negative thing in our lives. I think it has become that, but I really hope that there's a movement towards that sense of being at peace with ourselves, being okay with not being entertained every second of the day. And as we allow ourselves to foster that boredom, we also begin to appreciate those little things that we otherwise ignore while being entertained. So everyone, thank you for checking out this video. If you need to check your notifications now, please go ahead and do it. I appreciate you taking part in that challenge. Don't grade yourself by how well you were able to stay off your phone. Any intention towards that mindfulness and that awareness of that boredom is a step in the right direction. So thank you for engaging in that. As always, please like and subscribe. That helps us to grow our channel. Memberships are now available. We will be doing live streams every other week, and those will be member-only chats, so you're free to tune in, but if you want to engage in the conversation and the discussion, membership is key for that. So go ahead and consider that as you like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.